Hello, everyone, and welcome to RHAP's coverage of Australian Survivor, Brains V Brawn II. I'm your host, Shannon Guss, here and ready to talk about episode 3 with my wonderful friend, one of the best voices in reality television, and the Drew Barrymore of Shannon's Angels. It is the great Mike Bloom. Mike, thank you for being here.
All right, listen, I'll take it. I think, with no offense to Puya and Chappelle, I would be the one most likely to have a talk show out of the three of us. So I think it makes a lot of sense. I, too, met an alien when I was incredibly young that loved Reese's Pieces, so I think it maps really well.
You know a lot about Drew Barrymore.
Who doesn't?
It was more. You know that we share a birthday, me and her and Puya and George Washington.
I did not know that. No, that's
Yeah.
That's a Mount Rushmore if I ever heard one.
Exactly. And no, it's cool. Chappelle called Lucy Liu, and then Puya wanted Cameron Diaz. So you have Drew Barrymore, and I think you would like earnestly stare at someone.
Oh, I
So
would
it works.
absolutely sit
Yeah.
on the couch with them, hold their
Yes.
hand as they tell me.
Cross-legged.
I mean, that's sort of my
Yeah.
preseason interviews in a nutshell, right? It's
Yeah.
we're just kind of unloading on this proverbial couch in the middle of Fiji. But very excited, Shannon, because of course we did a lot of bloviating in the preseason about how we thought everyone would do. Some lived up to expectations, perhaps even more than we thought. Some have defied said expectations, but unfortunately still lived up to said expectations in going pre-merge. But this is wild. We're done with week 1 right now, an 8th of the season. We've already lost 4 people,
Yeah.
unfortunately, due to a medevac. How are you feeling right now?
I'm really upset about Zen. I mean, let's get that out of the way. We lost 2 N-type people, which is funny because Puya was like the indies, the Candy and Indy, that was back to back. And then Zen and Kent in one episode. What is happening with these like similar names going?
It's all about the Noonans had to stay, and everyone
Yeah.
else with similar sounding names had to go.
Yeah, there's gonna be a Noonan massacre probably in the future, or maybe the Nora double will be the thing. But the did I say Nora? I meant Laura. That's gonna be the thing. But yeah, I'm really upset about Zen. Like, I mean, I have to say it off the bat. Like, I was harsh about Zen in the preseason. A lot of jokes were made at Zen's expense, and I said, prove me wrong.
Zens.
I tried to. In my head, I thought it. Yeah, I said, prove me wrong. I'm a stupid moron, and like, I am a stupid moron. Like the way you're just nodding, like, yeah. I can say that about me. Okay?
I was as well. Listen, I think that the entertainment he brought was, in a word, sublime. I think he was very fun.
His acumen for the game was wonderful.
Exactly. Like I even just from that first second, I was like, okay, I was a little bit wrong about you just based on sort of the energy that you brought in. And look, maybe a couple of those quotes he had in the beginning of like, I got to tone down the testosterone, had us raising our eyebrows a bit, especially I think amidst some of the other cast members in this season. But I think he proved to be a lot of fun. I think he proved to be somebody that was willing to make moves, including flipping on the guy, voting against the guy that told him he had an idol 5 minutes into the game. And it's just always a really sucky way to go out. Like, I think, understandably so, one of the things we profess about Australian Survivor is that they have, especially with the 2-tribe format, these big one-on-one physical battles. This is one of those rare times that it comes at a cost, which is, of course, an injury. It's always tough to have that on top of, like, running on the cargo net, which, of course, infamously took out Missy, aka Muffin, back in the day on San Juan del Sur. So similarly, I thought there might have been a chance that Zen could have continued with his arm in a full cast. But I think for the betterment of just, his life as well as production, they had to pull him in this moment. And it sucks. Besides Jackie, I would imagine the earliest medevac that we've seen in AU Survivor.
It's really upsetting for a few reasons. I mean, I would have loved to see him continue on with the injury. That would have been great. But like Australian Survivor does the 24-hour medical rule. Like if they could have done something for him, like I really think that they would have. So it's super upsetting. We asked for just a couple of seasons to go by without a potential lawsuit. We do it every time, and we just ask the Survivor gods.
See, this is Australian Survivor in a nutshell. It's all about playing with fire. It's all about that danger, and that includes with possible lifelong physical injuries. You get what you pay for, Shannon.
I don't think the ratings are good enough to cover the lawsuits that happen so regularly on the show. So that's unfortunate. Also, like, yeah, losing anyone in this way was so upsetting. It was so shocking. Like, even though they were building it up about like his hand being sore, that wasn't great. And then, like, yeah, I really like Zen. Like, Zen, I think, prove me wrong. he got so much screen time. Like, they
Yeah,
really
a
built him
lot.
up as someone to care about. Like, they've done it before with, like, Chelsea. Like, we never met her, and she got medevac, like, weeks from
So
now.
that begs the question. I mean, obviously, I would not imagine Zen's going to frequent our screens in the next season, just given the theme, but
That'd be crazy.
we saw Nina, who similarly was a
Yeah.
big character before her injury in a challenge, get medevaced and return in Heroes versus Villains. Do you think there's a chance that, I don't know if they bring Zen back for like an outright returnee season, but could you see him get slid into the
Zen
next,
versus Jackie.
exactly, the
What about the
battle that we've all
lawsuit
been waiting for?
season?
Oh
Every
yeah.
Ross, let's bring it back. Let's just do like what you win in the lawsuit is that to captain a season, and we'll rig it a little bit
I
for
mean,
you.
we
Not
listen.
fully.
We could do a Survivor Philippines-esque season of having these medevacs become captains of their tribes,
Survivor lawsuits.
and have the tribe be filled with lawyers as well.
Yeah, yeah, but no one would talk about it,
Yeah,
obviously. No one would
exactly.
yeah, but by the end of the season, when they all admit it, be like, I could actually really use you because I'm actually still embroiled in a lawsuit
No,
with
actually,
Channel 10.
that's a really fun twist of, instead of giving everyone a shot in the dark, everyone's a lawyer, but they are given a fake profession that they have to play up on the
That's just the
island.
new era. You're just talking about new
Yeah, but
era
no, but it's
Survivor.
given to you. You don't have to. You
Right.
don't get to pick your new career. It's like the game of life. You have to pick it out of a card.
Just where are we? But no, I'm genuinely upset about Zen. I'm genuinely upset. The Zen puns we're gonna miss out on is the first thing. The second thing, like, he was playing a pretty good game. Like, he wanted to be second to Nash, but also just like had him on the hook, but also was like rightfully going for him. Everyone seemed to love him. He was socially central.
Oh yeah,
Everyone's
I mean,
crying.
look at the reactions. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
they've known him for a week, and yeah, you might think like, oh, that's histrionic, but like, I mean, I understand why the Brains reacted the way they did, because like, if I'm seeing these people on the mat next to me, I don't know Zen from a hole in the wall, but if I am seeing these people just absolutely emotionally torn asunder by getting rid of this guy, like, I'm gonna feel a little verklempt as well, and so it's very clear that this was a guy that everyone got along with, and I don't know if he necessarily was like the huge morale booster. I mean, I guess he was, right? Because we got that whole entire cold open about him being the sort
yeah.
of, hey, we're eating the same stuff, but let's try to dress it up as something else. Go through the Forrest Gump-esque list of all the dishes you could come up with rice and beans. Like, if he had that energy throughout their week in the game, that's going to leave a really big hole. What's interesting is, if we're looking ahead, Braun might have a bit of a leg up, considering that Brains, perhaps controversially, we'll get into it, ended up getting rid of someone that was kind of their challenge ringer. So, while losing Zen is going to be a huge hit for the Braun tribe, they kind of end the week on top here in the battle of the two tribes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as big a hit as the one that took out Zen. We can say
Yeah.
that. Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, on challenges, the Brains tribe are better at like physical obstacle course parts of the tribe of the challenges, despite being Brains v Brawn, and they're better obviously at the puzzles. But I think what Brawn is good at is obviously the 1v1s where they did not drop a point. They dropped a member. Unfortunately, we got
Yeah, so,
lawsuits.
does Brains get a point there? Does Kalen
Yeah.
technically win the battle?
No, exactly. Talk about winning the battle but losing the war. I've never seen that clearer. And then the thing that worse that I think is like the throwing stuff that we've seen before. So that might be the one thing, but that's not every challenge. So I think they're okay. It depends.
Yeah,
Kind of like
I think it majorly comes down to anything dealing with like Twine, not Sandra Diaz. Like, because Max, the big challenges they lost besides the big physical one was Max throwing the sack for some reason, and then this time around, like,
Rich
them
came
not
up with that idea. It's just completely been obscured through the week. Like poor Max that has
yeah,
taken all
but
of it.
also them not being able to put together the long enough, strong enough pull. And you
Yeah.
talk about Rich again, there seems to be a lot of loggerheads as to who's going to take charge in the challenges. Now, look, getting rid of Kent may have helped that, even though, again, the edit didn't really personify it as like Kent's the one that's taking charge. It seems more like when Kent hits camp is when he really ends up just absolutely digging a hole for himself. Rich seems to be the more outspoken person, to your point, that seems to be getting them into trouble in these challenges.
Yeah, that's the main thing with Brains, and let's talk about it because it's like the disharmony at camp and in challenges and their whole tribe. Just a quick thing on Zen, it's either triggered another non-elimination or a final two, and I just pray to God that it's the latter. So that's where we're at with that. But yeah, in terms of the Brains tribe who are going to go to tribal council, a lot going on still. Quieter episode than the one where Kent admitted to everyone that he had burned the hat, which is a high bar. Let's talk about it from AJ's perspective because a coming out episode for AJ. I really like AJ. Exactly the kind of player that I really enjoy. And I'm upset for him that this went like so badly, because he's right about, like, for the majority of the tribe, which is the 6 guys in this tribe of
Yep.
11, he is correct. Like,
Yes.
should all 6 guys put aside their petty differences, stupidity, insane hatred of Miles, Kent, what? Should they put all of that aside and be 6 and take out any woman? Yes, like, of course they should do that. But the thing is that they're not going to do that, for many, many reasons, which we'll talk about. There are nowhere near enough numbers. Like, Kaylin's in, Miles is in. I don't know that anyone else was in. And the thing for AJ is that while his logic is correct, his reads and his capital are wrong. Like, compared to
Yeah.
Logan, he's got so little capital, and I wish he could read that lack of capital. And would that have put him in a good position? No, but it would be in a better position than trying and failing and being next out, rather than like third next out, where like maybe you swap before.
Yeah, so I was really happy to see. I mean, this was a really fun episode for AJ, for Logan, for
Yeah.
Paulie to a certain extent. I mean, this is the benefit that comes with kind of packaging these 3 episodes back to back to back, is that we often look at the premiere as like the end all be all in US as to like who our winner candidates might be. But sometimes these people might pop at different times. I mean, I remember last season, Kirby, her big episode was episode 3, and she really didn't get a lot of stuff. And look at what she went on to do. Arguably was the main character of the season. So it's fun to see AJ there. Listen, we love good TV here. Obviously, we love to break down good strategy as well, but to have AJ just really, call out the lampshading of it all and be like, yeah, this would be a boring vote, and I don't want necessarily have a boring vote happen. And I think, to your point, again, on paper, this makes a lot of sense. I do think he had the proper read objectively that, like, Kent is not necessarily a threat. He's consistently pissing people off day after day. He is not somebody that's going to snake anyone as long as Miles is still in the game. He's just going to relentlessly go after him. But this is what is so interesting about Survivor, is that I always say it's a finite number of strategic options with an infinite number of personalities. That, again, on paper, to your point, this should work, but there are a few major barriers. One of them being, like, it sucks for AJ. He could not have executed any of the plans he wanted to with Kent still in the game. He cannot rely on Kent as a vote. I think he's the person who last episode, right, quite literally woke up and chose violence. I was like, wait a minute, the plan changed? No, we're voting Miles. We still got to vote Miles.
Yeah.
So, like, it's clear that Kent is someone who is very much my way or the highway. I think it's why he is so successful in his outside life, maybe not much so on the island, as we will get into. And so it unfortunately gave way here, where it just seemed like he was so stubborn that there was no way you'd be able to convince him to do that. On top of that, to your point, AJ picked the wrong person to target. Like, yes, in theory, Logan seems to be one of the keystones, obviously, between these two very vocal, prominent groups in the tribe, which is this Women's Alliance, which are the VBs. And so you think, like, okay, Logan is someone that we need to take out. It's interesting because I feel like Laura is getting so much content from our perspective, and she is also involved in both groups. So it does intrigue me that for whatever reason, he doesn't think that Laura is as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than Logan. But what he incredibly underestimates is basically Allie's relationship with Logan in a number of ways, right? He goes to her, tells her this information, says, don't tell Logan. She immediately tells Logan. Then he has this entire conversation with her and Max where he's like, and I do give him credit for this, of him making sure he is not driving this point home furiously, that he goes from basically 0 to 60 by being like, nope, this plan is happening. Something that maybe Logan is going to try to do later on in this episode. He does essentially ask for consent, right? He's like, okay, I want to make sure that you are okay with this. If not, we will bail. And Allie just looks him directly in the face and says, I am not okay with this plan. So I think that once again, as we saw last season, this could be a deep seeding of a future plan come to fruition. I mean, it is interesting that AJ essentially vocalized his entire game plan up to that point, which is like, I am carefully treading through the waters to make sure that, essentially fishing, right? Like, I want to make sure I sneak up on the fish. If I stir the waters too much, the fish is going to get spooked and get away, and then I won't have a catch of the day. Convenient considering that Brains chose the fishing gear here. Unfortunately, I think that he picked the wrong person to target and maybe picked the wrong person to try to bring over as well. And it all worked out in like this very confusing, chaotic shuffle where, like some of the best votes we've seen in Survivor, It starts as this very rote outcome, becomes an afternoon of absolute mayhem, culminating in tribal council where people are still whispering to each other, and then eventually kind of settles at the bottom of, yeah, we're just going to vote out Kent at the end of the day.
Yeah, there's a couple of options. There's a couple of issues with his option, and that is that firstly, yeah, Logan is a target. Like Chappelle and I kind of spoke about this with like a Candy Noonan target. You know, like Candy's not going to break it up as much for someone like Nash, but she's more viable because she's not as central, which makes her just like more of an option that people might do, where they might never do Noonan. He might never have like intimidated some people over the line. Logan is very, very central, which would make her a great person to take out, but makes it incredibly difficult. And I don't know that any of the women are going to do that, or are going to be good targets. Like, who is Ali taking out? Is she taking out Karen? Like, if anything, she seemed as close or even closer. But it's the limited conversations we've seen.
It's tough. Yeah, we don't know exactly what the like. Obviously, we know that Logan and Laura are close, but we don't know any of the other dynamics. We just found out in this episode, only as a result of AJ targeting Logan to Ali, that Ali is close with Logan. We had no idea prior to that.
It's more just in the last episode that they were like divided on the rich issue. So like Ali was kind of like on the Karen and Zara side. But I don't think Ali's taking out any of the women. And I think the issue is, as a target again, I don't think you can go for Logan or any of the women for the reason of where are the numbers? Because again, so there's no Kent. He's always going to be voting for Miles. And if they're all voting for Miles and there's, 5 women doing that, that's already an issue. Then you already need to pull over a woman. Then you have the fact that, like, I don't even know that there was anyone else. Like, we never seen talking to Rich about it. I doubt Rich wants one of the VBs. Like, he's someone who maybe tries to take out another woman, but that doesn't work. Like, if he can, like, try and isolate Laura by taking out a Karen or something, maybe he'll do that. But honestly, he seems a little too comfortable with where he's at with the women, where, like, Laura is protecting him, but he should probably be, like, a little more concerned about, obviously, like we see them talking about it, where he's at with them.
Next episode.
Yeah, exactly. And Max, obviously says no, but it's with Ali. But Max really seems in with the women. Like, he kind of feels like he's trying to be like the seventh to the women. So I don't know where any of the numbers are. Like, there's Kaylin, there's Miles, to his extreme credit, and I really want to credit Miles because he's such a logical player. Like, if anyone, has a reason to not be going to fully go for Kent, it is Miles. But he puts aside the fact that he's being victimized at this point. Like, the way that Kent is talking to him is so extreme, and he's the one who's like, I will do it for the betterment of my game. And I really, really appreciate that. So I don't see where the other numbers are other than those 3 people for AJ, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that we saw this conversation last episode where Rich and Max are right now kind of pursuing this line of logic of like, the women think we're the GOATs, but we're going to turn the game around on them eventually. And I don't think that eventually is going to come in
that's
the
not
third
how
episode.
Numbers work.
Now, what's interesting,
5-5, so.
what's interesting though, is we get this like sort of Shakespearean brief level of misunderstanding where AJ initially approaches Ali and is like, all right, I've got a big move to talk to you about. And Ali's like, we're finally getting rid of Rich. I'm picking up what you're putting down, buddy. And I am all for it. Oh no. But then what's interesting is that Ali goes to tell Logan, jumps to conclusions and is like, oh, it's getting rid of Rich.
It was like a comedy.
And then Logan's like, oh, I'm down with that. So again, it's this, had AJ known this conversation happened, had Logan and Laura gone to AJ and mistakenly thought, oh, yeah, we're on the plan, wink, wink, let's get rid of Rich. This is an easy thing for AJ to do, right? Then he goes to Rich and says, hey, your other 2 VBs just approached me and said that they wanted to take you out. That's how you get him on board, is you make Rich think that he is not as in with them as he thinks. Like, oh, you think you're going to dupe them? No, you're the one getting duped. But again, it's just a wild series of misunderstandings and telephone passing the names back and forth. I did think for a legitimate second, Shannon, that like Logan could get herself voted out because Ali mistakenly thought that AJ was targeting Rich, that was the big move, and just completely blows her game up.
It was a bit of an idiot comedy where, like, if it was written into a sitcom, you wouldn't believe it. It's like they're at this crossroads because he never said the name, but she assumed it, and then the broken telephone, like, just kept walking. But the thing is, even if he takes it to Rich, there's not enough numbers. Like, at the point where 5 women are never going to turn on each other, on any of them, and Kent is, and they could all pile on Miles. Well, they're voting for Kent. Okay, wait, let's look this out. So if they all pile on Miles, and he's voting for Miles, and Miles will go home, but they're voting for Kent. So 5 votes for Kent. And then say the guys get together and they do 5 votes on Logan.
1, yeah.
And then Kent votes for Miles.
5-5-1.
Then, right. But then the revote is like, what are the revote rules here? No, the revote is without Logan and Kent.
Yes.
So the guys actually went out.
Yeah. So
They
they
only
would.
need 5 votes. Oh, that changes a lot.
Yeah. So I think it's a
But I don't
matter.
think the max. But I mean, like, if he chooses a different target that's not Logan, or if he can go to them and be like, Logan wants you out, Rich, and will Max do it? Or can they?
I
Or should he have gone for Karen and not try to get Ali and just try to do the 5 guys and try to win on a plurality on a revote? Maybe
yeah.
without Kent's vote at all, voting for Miles, and
Also
then
the big question, as we also talk about the Logan and the women's side of things as well, and it's something that was very much talked around at Tribal Council, is like when you choose to make a move, if it's the right timing, will it work out, or will it be this butterfly effect that manifests in like something else chaotic happening down the line? Where I think also for AJ, does he feel like putting himself out there so much in that first vote, is it going to work out for him? Like, let's say that he goes through with this 5-5-1 plan and he's able to win the day. Does he rely on the 5 guys sticking together? Now, it's ironic considering what we're seeing on the next time on, which does seem like they're willing to stick together
yes,
in
but a
this
little
moment.
late.
But, like, can he rely on Kent, as someone to possibly bring along? Or is Kent going to continually just be this X factor, someone that pretty much has his vote pre-written for Miles at every single tribal council? Is he going to be able to trust his relationship with Allie anymore? Will Allie feel betrayed that they made this big move without her necessarily realizing it? Again, it's all about this calculated risk. And I think the difference between Survivor and poker, there's a number of them. As Garrett Adelstein once said, they're not bringing you plates of chicken at your will and call. But in poker, you can know when to hold them, know when to fold them. You can fold your cards, and the deck will get reshuffled. This is not the case in Survivor, where like these things that you do are going to carry over to the next round. It's not like AJ could say, well,
there is a swap eventually. That's the shuffle.
Yeah, but exactly. The shuffle up these people like cards. But like the choices he makes will carry over into the next quote unquote hand, which is this next round, which is going to be very intriguing. Like Logan, suffice it to say, she's not going to forget about this.
She should win an award in passive aggression. Like you could cut the tension with a knife. It was crazy.
Especially like kudos to the producers for seating them next to each other. Though I don't know if that we'll talk about from the women's side of things, if they were going to be able to pull the AJ vote off, whether that stymied things by like having them be unable to really whisper to each other profusely because of the fact that AJ is right there staring at them the entire time. But I think that AJ is now hoping once that plan kind of got scuttled, he'll be able to just like kind of recede back into the position that he was before he started really trying to put this plan into motion. I do not know if that is the case. And look, from what we're being shown next episode, maybe if the men do take on the women, he'll be able to kind of like hide back in the background. But it seems abundantly clear that Logan is not going to forget about this. And considering that this entire plan got scuttled because of the power that Logan has within this group, that is not looking good, my friend.
Look, if any cast is going to go to Rocks in episode 4, I do actually back this to be the cast that does it. But like my thing for AJ is like if he can get the 5 guys together to win on this 5-5-1, I think it's worth the shot. Not because it's a boring vote, which is nothing. That's not a reason that you do anything. Although it seems to be a lot of the reason that a lot of people are doing a lot of things. And
I love it. I love it.
No, but it's not because it's boring. It's because, as he said, like we're gonna get picked off one by one. Like for where AJ sits, if he just lets Kent go and he does nothing, so Kent goes now. And then Rich is going before him. And Miles is probably still going before him. But it doesn't seem like Kaylin is. And it doesn't seem like Max is. Like, is he after Kent, like 3rd in line? And then there's going to be 3 episodes next week. They're not going to swap. So you've got to hope that they win some challenges or that they don't swap late. It's a lot to put your fate in other people's hands. The issue is that he has to put it in other people's hands because the position isn't strong enough, because he's working with the men on the tribe who don't seem to have like their best interests or know their positioning enough, and like they don't have their own best interests at heart, because the women are just so powerful, and because there isn't cohesion in his group, and Kent's like messing that up, and there's so many things. And I think that I wish he'd been able to kind of read that and just hang back. And as much as I hate that for him and I don't think it's a good position, I probably would have tried to use his connection with Ali more to be like, hey, if we're gonna like be picking off guys, can I be the last guy? Like, can I be, number 6 with your group? And I would have tried to do that, even though I hate that position for him. I just think that it's like the best case scenario of what he has, because he's just completely overwhelmed compared to the capital and the power that the women have
Yeah.
against him. So they have a lot of different options. They have Rich, they have Max, they have just a lot going on, and the fact that the guys can't get it together. So I think it's really unfortunate, because I think he was doing, it as right as it could be. We've
Yeah.
spoken a lot this season already about bad language working and bad language dooming people already, but his language was good, as you said, kind of asking for the consent, going in, building trust, making that relationship, immediately being like, but like, if is there anyone you don't want, I think was
Yeah,
pretty good.
it had very much with that initial conversation with Caitlyn of like him saying exactly what AJ
Yeah.
wanted to hear. Now, was that coincidental or was that manifest in their relationship? I'm
I
not
think, yeah,
entirely
they
sure.
yeah,
But
they
basically,
both have this good idea, which is great. Like, it was very collaborative, which was good.
yeah.
It was just collaborative on an idea that could never happen.
And well, I think to go use a poker analogy, I think it's that
Okay.
AJ. I wouldn't say he was the short stack. I'd say Ken was the short stack from a social perspective, but like he had probably a couple of stacks of chips, and he was trying to essentially take down the chip leader in the form of Logan, and being like, "All right, I'm pushing all my chips in. Like I'm gonna try to get what I want." And Logan's like, "Yeah, I can spare a couple of these. It's fine. If I lose it, no big deal. But like at the end of the day, I still dwarf you in what I'm able to do." Now, what I do find interesting is that when the plan was initially laid out, they chose to split the votes 7-4.
Oh,
And
let's talk about it. My
certainly,
brother's gonna hate
there
this
were
so
you
much.
you love a good folly when it comes to leaving the minority alliance on the minority in the split vote. That's what they did with most of the men here. And it almost went through to completion. The lone exception is that AJ voted for Kent
Yeah.
alongside the women and Miles.
Yeah, I wonder if he just was like, "Why am I on the beta of the split vote?" This is the whole point. It's like, "Oh, you're making sure we can't, do something over the top here. You are, putting us on the beta so that Miles comes back and is upset with us." Although, to Miles's credit, I really do think like that actually wouldn't hold him back. Like, and AJ has a relationship with Miles. He doesn't want to vote for Miles, as much as I think Miles will get over it, because he's good at like putting the logic of his game first. So that spoke so much to the fact that the women can so easily just be like, "We're on the alpha. We have the power in the vote. We're not splitting up our numbers, and you guys can vote for someone who's going to walk back into camp." And on such an unnecessary split, I know for a fact my brother, when I speak to him, is going to actually hate this, because he likes clean splits. And it ended up being 3. Maybe AJ decided that himself. Maybe they were like, maybe we don't need 4. But like, why 4 for poor Miles?
Yeah,
Like, you don't even need to split it. Like, Kent is voting for Miles, and I can promise you that if you want to put one other vote on Miles just to
that's
make
the
sure he's one person, you don't need a 4-person split vote.
That's the thing, is like when they're saying, okay, who's on the split? Kent's on the split. Kent's
Yeah.
voting for Miles. This is
Yeah,
not a shot in the
exactly.
dark situation where it's like, well,
Yeah.
Kent's not voting for anybody. No, if Kent has something, he pulls it out and he's voting for Miles
Yeah.
regardless. Like, this is not a, oh, let's also vote for somebody else to tie it in case Kent goes rogue. Kent is, Kent is like Rogue, the person, in many ways, just in terms of how condescending he is. But like,
Oh my God.
he is not going rogue in terms of voting. Again, it is locked in that he is going to be voting for Miles. Have that be a constant, not a variable. Just throw all your votes onto Kent. Make it easier. To your point, again, this comes down to the personalities. Some people would be pissed off of my name got written down this many times. Miles, again, he is in such, unfortunately, a subservient position on this tribe that I think he's more than happy to come back and be like, "Thank you, sir. May I have another?" Though, I don't know. Now with Kent gone, he might finally be able to feel like he can actually play the game and be able to actually show himself, rather than feeling like, Kent's going to come in and be like, "Yep, well, why'd you do that, Miles? It's on you again, buddy. Why don't you go meditate some more?" But yeah, it felt a little unnecessary to do.
Yeah.
And arguably, again, were it maybe some different people, would have set up AJ in a very prime position to possibly take a hold of this vote.
What if if the women had split themselves? Yeah, but they didn't do that on purpose, because they have so much power. And everyone's just like, okay, and the guys are just following it, and AJ's tearing his hair out. You split maybe one vote beyond Kent's out of an abundance of caution, and that is already very caught. Like, you didn't need to like pile an extra 2, what ended up being 1. But anyway,
Unless it was
poor
a
Miles.
thing for whatever reason, like, if people like, well, I think Max was somebody who was very keen to vote Kent for incredibly obvious reasons. But unless someone like Rich was like, no, I can't vote for him.
He can
Like,
be the one split vote. He can do the
pick
one vote then, if he wants to vote for someone who's still going to be in the game, rather than someone who's been burning hats for
and
some reason.
burning social capital by the day.
Yeah, there's no like the Kaylin was on the Mars. Like Kaylin's kind of been in that group that AJ's trying to work with. AJ, as we said, was on the Mars
Maybe
vote,
that was
and he.
penance for sending Zen out. Is like, all right, this is your Zenins, Kaylin. Like, you have to be on the minority split vote.
Yeah, I think it just shows how little control the men have and why it would be good for them to try and flip everything around. But that's not what happened. I mean, yeah, for Kent and Miles, I like it. I was uncomfortable with like the ire that Kent had for Miles. We don't see everything, but I can't imagine what Miles could have done to deserve the way Kent was talking about him. The fact that he pinned a hat firing, a hat burning on him.
Now maybe it's because even Kent felt the reason why he, again, nonsensically revealed that it was himself is because he felt bad for, like, all right, listen, even I can only go so far with my actions.
I've never heard such fan fiction. It's the fact that he revealed the hat burning before both votes and still was so confident both times it would be Miles. It's the fact that he came back from a Indy vote where he was the only one other than Indy to vote for Miles and was still like, but we're all doing Miles. And we never see the fallout of, wow, was I out of that? Or was he brought into the Indy vote, but he just had to vote for Miles? Like, whatever made him so just like one eye focused on Miles was I didn't enjoy the dynamic, and I'm glad it's out of the game. And I feel like I wish Miles got more out of the fact that like everyone was so sorry for Max that the hat was burned, and I do understand that like his personal property was burned and like Sun Safety. I've spoken about it at length, but like Miles was also like the way he's trying to connect with people early in the game, and his game has been marred by being framed for that. And I felt like he should have got a lot more sympathy than he did, and that it didn't. I thought that like at the time it felt like the guys were like, oh, and like seeing it as a funny prank, and the women hated it. No, the men also hated it. Max really hated it. We found out in this episode you can't do that, admit to it, and survive. Yeah, that's not. We know. Great.
Yeah, exactly. If anything has been proven through this week of Australian Survivor is like mess makes for fun TV. It does not make for $500,000 at the
He
end.
doesn't need it, I guess.
Well, and that's the thing as well is what I will say is like, I think now that Kent's out, I enjoyed to a certain extent what he brought in terms of knowing that he is like this 1 week villain, right? That like he is not the big bad of this season. He's essentially this mini boss that you face. That I had some dread. I was a bit surprised at Kent being voted out here for a number of reasons, and I thought like, okay, if Kent survives this tribal council, he will either go one of two places. Either he'll be the first boot at the swap because all the brawn will run into him and be like, okay, we got to get rid of this guy. Like, this is not something that we want in our life, especially given the fact that they couldn't get rid of someone similar of a chaotic temperament in Nash in the first vote, or like basically see him at the final five. Because unless he's like killing all of these challenges the way that he claimed, there would be no reason to get rid of him. Essentially, he was like a more fit Philip Shepard, of someone who just had this idea in his head, was a little bloviating, was condescending, was someone that was so set in their ways and just did not necessarily know how they were coming across. And so, again, while it may have been a boring vote, I am happy for the remainder of the season to see Kent go. Listen, Shannon, 8 years ago, a famous man named Kent once said there's a dickhead in every group. And if you can't find the dickhead, that's you.
It's you.
And a man of a similar name was able to prove that he was the dickhead in this moment. And so serving as this like dog kind of barking at the mailman for an eighth of the season, in that like he was never actually going to bite them, but was certainly going to speak as loudly as he could about how this needs to happen. If it's fun to see him kind of undergo this downfall as well, as someone who never voted correctly at both of the tribal councils he went to.
I think I'm upset that Miles's experience has been so caught up, seemingly completely unprompted from what we've seen in it. I think that's the one thing that stops me from it being this like just like 1 week comical villain arc. I mean, he has the downfall, which is great. I think like him admitting to the hat burning is like an all-time moment. I think that him narrating himself in the challenge was insane.
So fun.
Mean, what like all of that. I think all of that is good. I like the Mars thing. I don't love, but I will say, he said all this time, the survivor was the one thing he couldn't buy. I think they should have let him buy it. I think he should have been able to buy his way onto the show for millions of dollars.
He has Russell Hand's
lawsuits. Okay.
Well, listen, he has Russell Hand's tendencies, and one of the things Russell did at the end of Samoa was trying to buy the title. So that might, if they do a reunion, Kent might do the exact same thing. And also, I think again, admittedly a little cathartic. We are in a place in our society where maybe an ethos of eat the rich has kind of risen to the top. So it's kind of fun from a meta perspective to have the multimillionaire here get taken down in a position when he thought he was absolutely untouchable.
Yeah, but what are you doing, Survivor? Letting millions of dollars, I assume, go off the table. This man will pay you anything to be on the show. Accept it. Okay, we need money. We need money to stay on the air. We need money to pay Jackie and Ross and probably Zen. So just take the money. Nina, who knows? Okay, a lot of people get injured in challenges. We need it for the future. That's the first thing. The second thing, let's talk about the women a little bit and the power
Yes.
that they have. Because in terms of like the question of like Rich or Kent or AJ, here's my strategic opinion. Who cares? Who cares? Like, and I genuinely like, I guess like the one thing is like Kent leaves the 5 guys in, but even then they're like on a 5v5. Like they're in the majority
And
now.
in
They
a
have all the
5v5
power.
where like Laura and Logan have Rich and Max by proxy kind of in their back pocket as well. So is it
Yeah.
really 5v5?
I think they throw AJ under the bus. Like I think they're the next 3 boots. Like I think Kent, Rich, and AJ now in some order are the next 3 boots, and it's gonna go one way. I think that Kent allows it to seem cohesive now so that they can just start picking them off. Like obviously Rich would upset people like a Max who they're close to, so it might just be a bit more antisocial that way. Like ruffle some feathers. AJ is obviously very last minute and they need like, some guys for this plan, obviously. Where they think they could probably get Rich and Max, who again seem into it. But it's like if you can do it now, it feels like you're gonna be able to do it tomorrow. Like they'll just do it. Then they have so much power that I just don't think it really matters to me. And it's just about like how they can like live day to day. Now the issue with living day to day is it seems like a lot of people are interfering with that. So unfortunately they can't just all go now for them. But in the fact that Kent is like making life a
Hey, Rich,
misery, like
run out there, fingers
yeah,
first. Let's see if
yeah.
anything can happen.
Exactly. So, yeah, at this point, whatever gets you through the day, like they're gonna be okay. They really are.
Yeah, and so I am happy that Laura was kind of able to. I mean, again, listen, would have been incredible TV if Logan ends up cutting off her nose to spite her face and gets rid of someone like Rich, who, yes, on the one hand, did verbally out your alliance in the previous tribal council, but as Laura kind of professes, says that that's a result of him being so locked in. You know, the fact that he was so comfortable to say that. I understand that, yeah,
Well, yeah, like how does that help? Like, okay, like I don't care why you did it. Like that's not great. People outing named alliances at tribal council. Like, no.
but I think at this moment, Rich is definitely not looked at as like, oh my god, he's a dangerous force that we need to get rid of, right? Like the only
Oh,
reason
I
why it
disagree.
would be I think it's the more so the reason that Logan kind of ascribes to it, which is more so kind of a personal idea of like he is someone that is really rubbing the tribe the wrong way. If Kent is gone, he might be sort of like the dickhead in waiting, like the next in line, as to someone that is going to be ruffling a lot of feathers, especially in these challenges, especially in tribe cohesion. But it just feels like from me, I think Rich was never an idea that would be on the table if I was in their shoes, just because it doesn't seem like he presents as nearly as much of a threat in really any category the way that
None of them are
AJ
threats.
does.
AJ is. Oh, AJ is a threat. Sorry, Kent and Rich like are both a similar type of nuisance to the women. I thought Rich should go. I'm very against how Laura is playing this, and I'm very on the
Oh,
side of Logan. I said yesterday, I was like, "Ooh, this is so bad for Laura. Like she's been outed in this named VB alliance with the women. They're gonna see that. If I were her, I'd be like, let's cut Rich. Like I don't want this coming between us. Also, like yes, he's a shield, but he's also like a huge liability. I think that's been clear. Yes, he told them the truth, and she's like, he's the only one who's been honest with us. It's like, no, you have so much power. All the women have been honest with you. Everyone other than AJ at this point has been pretty honest with them. Like, did Miles lie to them? Did even Kent lie to them? Like, they have so much power. They have so many ally options. The only thing is, like, it might cut off like a Max, which is upsetting because he seems to like really want to work with the women. But like again, Kent says he trusts Laura. Like whoever like they cut, they're gonna have like other options to get, to use until they can get rid of them later. And Rich, I just think would make Laura look better to the coven
hmm
about like, oh, I'm actually super loyal to you, and I'm really sorry about how awkward that was. That I was trying to protect him and lying to you, and I just want to show you like I'm fully out on him. Like, yeah, he outed their alliance, and I would just be completely out, and I fully respect that Logan said that. Like, I love the way that Logan is playing that. I also like that she won't put herself out there to do it. Like,
Yeah.
she's not pushing Rich because why bother? Like, also, like, that just feels like a lot of effort and like sticking your neck out, where again it doesn't really matter. But like, yeah, if AJ is gonna do it, like, I would cut him. Yeah, I would.
So
I don't like how Laura is so attached to him. She spends half her time advocating for this man, and why?
so let's talk through from a results oriented perspective. Do we think the AJ vote didn't go through? A, because to Rich's
Jay.
point, exactly, they weren't able to get the votes together in time, or J, because they thought in the moment, like, okay, Kent's the much easier person to kind of get out of the way, get out of our hair, despite the fact that he is bald, and, deal with the other nuisances later on.
I kind of feel like it's a bit of both. It's like you really have to like hustle to get AJ out now, and like for why? Like Ken, there's also like good reason to get rid of Ken. Like on something that I feel matters so little. And while I do think AJ is a much bigger threat, I also think he's like in your sights. If this is like right before the swap and you realize you can't trust him, and it's like, oh, I don't want him to get to a swap and then be able to do me later in a way that Kent never will be able to, then maybe. But it's like you're gonna have time. You're gonna get rid of him at some point. They're all going home, so it's just about the order. I think. I don't know if I'm being too cocky for the women, but that's how I
Yeah,
feel.
I don't know. The lone caveat I could see to keeping AJ is like AJ is the person you do not want to let into a swap.
That's
Because
so far away from now is my point. Like
I mean it
that's
could be like
that's
three or so
although I
votes
guess
away.
they have done twists. That would be the word. And but that's
Yeah.
not really like the DF era. Like since he started doing it with like Heroes Villains and Titans v Rebels. I feel like we have had like an episode 4 like kidnapping or whatever that happened in
Yeah,
Social
you
Case, but
usually
like
episode 5 or 6, right? That was the Kara vote
but they
in
don't
original
really do
Brains
that
versus Brawn. That
anymore.
was the Kelly vote last year.
Right, but she only went for 24 hours. Like, actually someone going over. Like, yeah, Kara didn't
The
in
Jerry vote.
episode 6. Shawnee and Zach went, then they swapped around. Like, I still think you'd have a couple of episodes. They you could do like an episode 4, like little twist, but I don't think that's really where production are at. That would be unfortunate. That might be the one thing that might push an AJ like out of the like again abundance of caution that there's like a kidnapping twist and he like gets kidnapped away from you and now is like a threat to you in episode 4, or like maybe I guess that you like win a challenge or two and don't want to throw because like we don't want to start that happening, and we don't want like because like it's fine if you don't want to throw the challenge and
Yeah, because
start
I think
getting rid
there
of
is
people.
there
So
is there is
yeah,
also something even outside of the strategy perspective that like feels draining about having to go to tribal council time after time. And
yeah,
some
yeah,
people salivate and bathe in it, and but for others, like there's something nice about you win the challenge. You basically have the day off. Like you don't need to run
yeah.
around
No, I'm
plotting
not
and
asking
planning
them
everything.
to.
And so I would
Yeah,
imagine, which is ironic considering the Brains again got rid of probably one of their better challenge performers from what we were seeing. Like Kent was basically single-handedly responsible for the Brains nearly coming back and winning that most recent challenge. So to your point, I don't think they're necessarily out of the running. Now, I think these challenges, these honestly might be some of the most balanced tribes we've ever seen in the history of Australian Survivor, with just how neck and neck all of these challenges, with one exception, have been so far. But I also imagine that, and maybe one reason why they might want to keep Rich in is if they feel like, okay, I hope if they lose 3 in a row, they might actually start making decisions that would benefit more so their challenge game than necessarily everything that's going on back at camp. Like, yeah, five-some is nice to have to cement that majority. But if you're the only five-some that's basically left of your tribe by the time a swap
oh,
happens,
they'd be
then
having a great time. Or they'd be loving life, getting rid of all those guys. Yeah, they believe me, they'd be happy at the beach. It'd be fine.
yes, but if they get swapped over to another beach, maybe that would not necessarily be the case. But they're like, especially with some of the
I think they could
personalities on
integrate
Brawn.
with Brawn. Yeah, like I think that it's not like they could be coming up against a whiskey heats of tribe either. Not that they know that necessarily, but no, like you don't want to lose a ton of people. You don't want to go in to a swap with no people. You don't want to be throwing challenges when you've already lost 2 of the 3 challenges. I agree. I think that you've convinced me enough that like if it wasn't too stressful, and like if it's really last minute, I guess not, because again, I do think they'll have time to get rid of AJ and Kent at least, if not like AJ, Kent, and Rich. Although I guess to be fair, it would just take them winning 2 challenges next week for them to not get rid of one of those people. And then they
Yeah.
swap at like a really regular episode 7. So yeah, they might have to keep one. And I think that you don't want to keep AJ.
Yeah.
So maybe on that alone, and like again, the abundance of caution that there's like some weird Australian Survivor kidnapping swap, one person swap thing that we can't think about like really early. Maybe you go AJ. I'm not so mad at it though.
I mean, I'm not as well. Like, again, it also comes down to, as you mentioned before, the fact that these are living, breathing people who are also living and breathing next to other people 24/7. And the fact of the matter is, Ken was, yes, on the one hand, a non factor in terms of strategy, but was certainly not a non factor in terms of interpersonal dynamics. Like, this guy seemed to just take up a lot of space and a lot of air in camp. And I think there is a very understandable human aspect. It's almost like what Logan was pitching for Rich as well, of like, this is just somebody I don't think I can deal with. And there is something as well about, while it is odd to say, considering that we almost saw like a possible 5-5-1 vote, like tribe cohesion at this point. Even the Indy vote, like as much as Indy tried to blow up how split the tribe was, it was a near unanimous vote on her. I think we have to remember this is still episode 3. And while these people are doing wackadoo things as soon as 5 minutes into the game, there are some of these prevailing attitudes that still bear out at the end of the day. Hell, that's the reason why Candy went, is because it's like, oh, she's seen as quote unquote the weak link. I think that there are still these ideas, these rules that David Bloomberg came up with and still talks about to this day as to things that generally work and don't work in early Survivor votes. And I think this was a prime example of that, of just the bill that Kent had wrote for himself with all of the things he had done for the previous week still outweighed the fact that AJ was caught plotting to take out Logan. Like, that still was overwritten by the fact that Kent is someone that would prove to be such a nuisance, even just from a day-to-day basis. And that speaks a lot to Kent's game as well.
Yeah. Combined with how late in the day it was, I think it's all
Yeah.
of that. And combined with the fact that they probably will get like a lot of this done. Like, they have so many nuisances to get rid of, and I still think they'll get at least a lot of it done. Maybe not all
Yeah.
of them, but they
Yeah,
have some runway.
So what do you think the repercussions from both the AJ side and the Logan side, like what do you think is going to carry over? What butterfly wing patterns are we looking at now? Will it be Logan ferociously targeting AJ? Will it be AJ trying to take a second shot at Logan once he feels he has more time under his belt? Will he try something else?
I think Logan's gonna crush AJ next episode, unfortunately, and I really like AJ, and I was happy to see him get some screen time, and I think it's limited. If they might win the challenge, or he might get kidnapped. That's a risk, Otherwise, I think AJ's gone. I feel like I'm gonna get to the point where this goes over an hour, and the clock strikes midnight, and I lose my Chizzy points because that's what Chappelle says will happen if it goes over an hour. I'm gonna get to the Chizzy because I have other people to talk about, but I can do it in the Chizzy. So
Okay.
Yeah,
I might have someone else to talk about in the Chizzy as well, which will be a fun little segue.
Take it away, Jacob Sager-Weinstein and MC Color.
1, 2, 3. 1, 1, 1, 3, 1, 1, 3, 1, 1, 3. It's getting kind of chizzy. 3, 2, 1.
All right. Well, so firstly, I'm going to give 3 points to Logan, which we have spoken about.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like, again, I like her instincts on going for Rich but not leading going for Rich. I love the fact that she has so much social capital. Like, while AJ clocked her, and that was a bit unfortunate because it felt like she was a second to Laura and hiding well. So while he saw that, and that was unfortunate, he had nothing against her. Like, that level of power is 3 points. And as we're saying, now I'm like really on board that it should have been AJ. I get why it couldn't happen, but I think like her want for that is correct. So 3 points to AJ. 2 points for Ali, who we haven't spoken about. I think Ali was good here because coming back to Logan, firstly, not wanting to vote for Logan. Let's talk about that first. I think was very good.
Yes. Great on her, honestly, to stand her ground. As much as we talk about flexibility and commend AJ's flexibility, like that is a number for Ali. And I think AJ was looking for the proper person and the proper target to crack that women's alliance. And good on Ali for saying, like, I'm not just going to flip willy-nilly. Though it is odd that, like, again, the weird ambiguity of the first conversation, Ali expressed, like, yep, I'm going with you no matter what. Asterisk, as long as it's Rich.
Yeah, he was like, is there anyone you don't want? And she's like, yes, thousands of them. Like, yes, the women, like half the tribe. He did ask, to be fair. She didn't answer that. So I think that's how we got confused. But she shouldn't be turning on the women. If AJ says she's at the bottom of the women, we don't know those relationships well enough. And it does not matter. Like, if she's 5th in the tribe, that's great. She has so much power with these women, and that's going to play out at the final 5 of the season. Like, there's so much runway. We talked about it for Indy yesterday, right? Like, yeah, be at the bottom. And she's way more in than Indy was. Like,
yeah,
if you're in with the group and you're not number one, like that doesn't even remotely matter. And at the point where it matters, like the whole structure will be completely different. So she shouldn't be turning on Logan. She builds trust with Logan. She was right to go back to Logan. Max is also there. You'd hate for the loose thread of Max to get there before you. She does that, so you'd hate to be caught out. So yeah, I just feel like there's no indication that she'd be in a better spot for flipping as well. Like, where would she even be with the guys? And she'd burn all the social capital, make a ton of enemies, be like in a chaos cast, like one flipper swing spot
Not
so
to
early.
mention she would still have Kent in the game, and it seems like she and him really
And
do
she
not get
hates
along.
Kent. Yeah, well, she was also trying to go for Rich, to be fair. Like, she really doesn't, but she was also like, yes, Rich. So that just shows, I think, the level of frustration. But yeah, I back everything she was doing, so I'm giving her 2 points. Anything else on her?
No, I mean it's really good to also see. Again, we have seen at up to this point the Coven as like one big blob. So I am happy that we're getting more insight. That Brain keep going back to Tribal Council because we're gaining more insight as to like, I wouldn't even say the hierarchy as much as like who is linked up with whom outside of this. We see this a lot in Big Brother, right? Like if there is one kind of central alliances, everyone else kind of has their little spokes on the wheel, has those people that they have on the side that are outside of the alliance, not only to keep them at bay, but also like just in case something goes south, at least I have this person. So it's good to check in with somebody like Allie, who again, we heard a lot from Laura in the past. We heard a lot from Logan in this episode. We heard a lot from Karin previously. Allie was someone that we really hadn't checked in with. So I'm happy we got to see not only where she sits with everything, but that she nearly gets what she wants in the form of like, yes, she does not get rid of her target 1A in Rich, but she does not get rid of Logan. She actively stymies that plan, which only works out for her because now she also has AJ in the picture, and it's not like AJ is necessarily saying, I'm not going to work with Allie anymore.
Yeah, so I think she did very, very well. And then I'm going to give 1 point to Paulie. We haven't spoken a lot about Braun. The first thing is that Paulie immediately using the Mapkin pun shows that he's my hero. I had it written down before he said it, and like I just want to thank him for the Mapkin pun that he did. I feel like, I mean, he gets the idol. Obviously, like he got it in the loaded fry, so that was lucky, but he makes good on that. I have a little bit of a criticism, but I guess it's 1 point here, but I feel like telling Noonan about just a clue is a bit of a half measure. I like that he told her something. I think he should just tell her everything. Like, I don't think he should have any gaps with Noonan. This is an ally you want to see, you know, his number one ally. You want that to see you through the next like several weeks in the game. She's already clocking it, much to her credit. Like, just be so honest with her and like use it to unite you. I don't need any kind of lying to Noonan. I don't see the necessity in that, but in finding it and in at least giving her some information and responding well in that moment, I am giving 1 vote to Paulie.
Yeah, Paulie, again, had a really fun episode. We finally got to see him as well, and he obviously has a fantastic coming out party here. I'm not as down on what he does with Noonan. I mean, from what we can tell, Noonan seems to be somebody who is in good with a lot of people on Braun. Does he have a fear that if he tells her all of the information, including that he has an idol, that she will leak that to other people? Could be a possibility. There's also this idea of like, you know, if he really wants to, he could pull off what Coach did in South Pacific, right? Of like, we're gonna go on this idol hunt together. Oh, I found it. So like, it's not exactly out of the realm of possibility where like she is gonna, you know, actively go after him once she finds out that he may have found the idol without her. I think it's a nice unifying thing, while also being a bit trepidatious and conservative with like, do I really want to let her know everything? But again, that's great that we have more of an insight into that relationship, that Paulie is really close to Noonan. And I will also give him kudos that it seems like, now maybe this is at the castigation of the rest of the tribe, but like Noonan seemed to be the only person that clocked that Paulie went away for a really long time. And it's also, again, I loved the editing in this episode of kind of having AJ and Paulie as like, I wouldn't call them diametrically opposed foes, maybe more so bros, of like both of them kind of having these confessionals of like, these people aren't playing the game going on. I'm the only one that knows what's going on. And then simultaneously kind of getting clocked for it as well. But a fun way to see Paulie here. I definitely gave him an honorable mention because he does walk away with an idol. Also wild that in the first week, we have had 2 idols found on the Broad Tribe. And from our record, 0 found on the Brains Tribe.
Yeah, only hats being burned and no idols being found, which is, you know, not a stat you would expect. So wait, so who are your points?
So I'm gonna give they're fairly similar points, but it's gonna be maybe a little bit of a controversial exception here
Oh,
from your
don't like
logic.
that.
I will give 1 point to Allie, just because, again, I think that she was able to be really one of the straws that stirred the drink, or in this case, made it stand still, in that she was the one that made sure this didn't happen for good reason. I will give 2 points to Logan because, again, while she does not
3.
while she does not get the outcome that she wants, she does get protected by the fact that, like, when the person took the shot at her, she was able to basically evade it entirely because, with a couple of exceptions in the form of Miles, who's kind of a bottom feeder at this point and just wanted a name to go off of, and Kaylin, nobody else wanted to vote out Logan. And again, it speaks to what she's been able to do. I do fear a little bit for what that means moving forward. Like, you talk about the fear that came in, obviously, some of these alliances being outed. Is the fact that Logan's game has now been talked out, does that mean that she can evade the radar now? Are people going to start saying, yeah, you know what, maybe AJ was right. Maybe Logan is somebody that's a lot more powerful than we may think. That does give me a lot of fear because, again, I peg someone like Logan in the preseason as someone who could be a winner pick, and she's kind of proven it right now because she is someone who really is getting in good like she promised. I'm going to give 3 points to Laura. I know, I know you don't like it, but the fact of the matter is she has a confessional where she's like, I'm losing power. I want Kent gone. This isn't great. And at the end of the day, she was able to get what she wanted. She was able to get these votes back together. She was able to help corral the chaos back to, all right, but let's agree at the end of the day, we're going to keep Kent here. I agree that, like, the rich problem might become more of a situation the more that other women are really pushing for him to go. In the moment, she is able to keep that at bay. She's able to keep Logan from possibly going for AJ here. And while I think there are positives on the outset, I just think that Kent, the negatives far outweigh the positives of getting rid of AJ, just from an interpersonal perspective. And so it also maybe for me kind of caps off this week of, like, Laura being one of the biggest surprises of the season. I did peg in the preseason of, like, okay, let's she's not going to be this big floofy, chaotic, wacky witch. And I think she's proving that. I think she is someone who has a lot of really good interpersonal skills, knows a lot about the game, and is showing it. So while there might be scruples with who she ended up targeting, the fact of the matter is she was able to get done what she wanted amidst an afternoon of just absolute calamity. And I'm going to give her kudos there.
All right. Well, I mean, she is playing a good game. I'm just telling you, Rich will be an anchor to her, and just mark my words on that. But there are 3 minutes until we turn into a pumpkin. It's fine. It's like, when was the first time we went over the hour that we promised on our first podcast together? So obviously, I think that was pretty predictable. But there's a couple of things that we have to talk about. The first one being, there's a secret scene online. We talked about this in the preseason. It's the most amazing scene about how Noonan's entire thing so randomly is just like wanting to be like the survivor Noonan, and she has like all like this huge chip on her shoulder about the fact that like all these other Noonans in the Mornington Peninsula are so like famous, like her brothers and her dad, like everyone knows about them. But this was her thing. This Survivor is her thing. That she's the Noonan who has Survivor, and then Jesse's last name is Noonan, and there is a secret scene where she's like, oh my God, is this a stitch up? Why is this happening to me? And she's like, I really like Jesse. I get along with him so well, but also very much indicated that like, and I will cut a bitch,
Yep.
because he is also named Noonan.
Neither can live while the other survives.
It
Noonan
was
Highlander.
so perfect. It was everything we wanted it to be.
Hi, Noonan. Like, they got to show down at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, it also led me to believe, especially with no offense to Jesse after watching him this first week, that made me think there's a non-zero chance that they cast Noonan first. And they're like, you know, it would be really funny.
Just
If
find
we
me
found,
a Noonan.
if we
Get
found,
me a Noonan.
if we found a famous Noonan and put them on the tribe with her, but it's incredible. This is the face crack of the century that we needed. It gives her even more fire to do well now because she not only has to like outkick the other Noonans in her family, she also has to outkick the other Noonan on the beach. And I also love Jesse's side of things when they're talking at that night about how did I read the subtitles correctly? They had to take an NDA test to figure out if they were related or not.
I'm sure they said DNA. I think that's probably the way that it went. Well, that was amazing.
And NDA would have come into handy in that lawsuit season.
Yeah, 100% in the Survivor lawsuits versus lawyers season, which we almost can fill up a tribe of. Definitely lawyers and lawsuits where we're only building, God forbid. This is why we need Kent's money. But I was just thinking with Braun, it's crazy. Like, there was the only reaction we got to that insane first tribal council was with Zen, who was gone.
Yep.
Yeah, like, I was just thinking about, like, you would think that, because I try to structure out the whole tribe and, like, Morgan and Kate, like, what about them flipping? What did people say? A nighttime
Yeah.
scene coming back from tribal wouldn't have been out of place, and we've had nothing, and it's been days, and now they're just eating loaded fries.
Yeah, I mean, Nash, and I guess I'll give him credit because for someone who absolutely self-destructed their own game in a manner of speaking, even though they were safe by the idol in the first 3 days, like, seems like he's hanging out with them. Like, he might have instituted the Miles strategy of Operation Play It Cool and just like completely lay low, like stick to cam like a bump on a log, say, I'm never looking for idols again. But he even said at the end of that first tribal, like, we've got a lot of talking to do. And he had one conversation with
And no one
Zed,
talked,
and
yeah.
that was it. So,
Yeah,
I
that
don't
was
know.
it.
From what Paulie is saying about that tribe, maybe there wasn't a lot of conversation. Maybe they were just like, "Oh, that was weird. Oh, well, Candy's gone. Let's move on. Next day, let's mix in some sand with our rice and beans." Or maybe there'll be these frustrations that will fester to the surface. It does seem like next time Noonan is looking to get rid of this Nash rash, and maybe she has found a new topical salve to do so.
Yeah, well, I know we're gonna get to, like, all the macro stuff with Rob on the feedback show, kind of like what this week is looking like and looking back at the week after the 3 recaps that we've done. But it's been so much fun. What a delight, Mike, to get to talk to you every week on a podcast. It almost makes talking to Chappelle and Puya worth it. No, I'm joking. I
Happy to
love
be
all
the
my recap
happy to be the
bitches.
dessert at the end of the course,
Yeah, I got
Shannon,
the
'cause people say
Brussels
save the best.
sprouts.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, this was a really fun week. This was a messy week. Again, it was advertised out the wazoo that this was the most explosive season of Australian Survivor yet. I think it certainly lives up to that. Listen, there are maybe some more unscrupulous personalities, but that happens par for the course, especially with Australian Survivor when they do bring on, certain types of cast members. But I will say, to get to see, like, looking back on this week, the rise and fall of Kent was, while I definitely agree that, like, some of the Miles stuff was kind of ooky, like, to just see this guy, I'll say it, with his head so far up his ass, and to see him get humbled by it was pretty fun. To have Kent get all this content about how good he's doing whatever he's doing, even though we have no idea why he does what he does. I mean, let's hope that he's the one exit interview you get to bag this week, Shannon, just to like get a little bit of method to the madness. I will commend him that he helped contribute to just the massively dramatic, entertaining aspects we've had to start this season. I'm intrigued to see where we go from here, because I would say that while these 3 votes were incredibly messy, they did all kind of solidify over these, as I mentioned before, kind of like central conceits of these early Survivor votes. The quote-unquote weakest challenge performer, the person that was causing, the most mayhem, and the guy that was really
He
getting
burned
on
the hat and then
everybody's...
told everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy that was getting on everybody's nerves. So I'll be intrigued to see, now that everyone has had, the first blush of tribal council, will it cause them to get a little more risky in these future votes? Will we have the messy gameplay to match the messy actions? We shall see, but I'm very excited to be covering it alongside you and the other Angels.
Yeah, well, I think we settled on recap bitches. Although Chappelle put a comma in, making it Shannon's recap comma bitches. And then I said, you changed the meaning. Did you intend that one stroke and you consume my waking days? And I don't think he got that. And then he changed. Did you change it to Shannon's comma recap comma bitches? And now it's just
Guilty as charged. I'm gonna Kent it right now. I was the one who did it. Yes, I threw
Also,
Grammar in the fire.
yeah. I do think that we like, Puya nailed why Kent did it. I think he solved it. It's just that when Kent isn't on screen or people aren't talking about Kent, everyone should be asking where's Kent, and they weren't talking about him at that moment. And he was like, "Here I am." So that's
Yeah, I mean, consider the fact that this man did not vote correctly in either one of his 2 times, seemingly was left out of both votes, and he ends his Survivor journey by saying in his final words, "How I'm remembered is irrelevant. I don't care."
Yeah, well, we could keep talking about it for days, but we shouldn't, based on the fact that we're already over the timeline that we set 2 days ago. But people have more time. This is why I thought about this when I scheduled it. I thought, when Mike and I inevitably go over, people will have more time to listen to it before the episode on Sunday. So we do have a lot of content. We have, again, Rob on the feedback show. We have an exit interview with someone who went home this week that will be on YouTube and on the feed. We know globalsurvivor.com for all of that. Follow me at Shannon Guss as well for all of that. Mike, what about you?
I'm doing so much Survivor 48 stuff.
We're gonna go to 2 hours now with Mike's many plugs.
I'll do quick plugs as well. So I'm back next week, so like it's gonna be pretty much the same stuff. But we are more than 1 week away from the premiere of Survivor 48, and I have everything you need to know about these 18 people. I've got interviews in written form in podcast form. Of course, the Reality Flash. I covered the Challenge 41 cast last week as they were speculated upon. And the last thing I will plug is that there is going to be a really fun event in Chelsea, in New York City,
Oh.
this coming weekend on Saturday. Similar to what happened in Dumbo a few months ago, they're doing a drop-in event where there's going to
Fun.
be a bunch of challenges set up, a bunch of fun little Survivor-esque stations, event created by CBS to celebrate the upcoming season. I'll be there. If you want to be there as well, come by, say hey, give your thoughts on this very messy season of Australian Survivor so far. And yeah, otherwise you could check out everything I am doing at a Mike Bloom Type.
All right. Well, we did it. Not in time, but do people want
Relatively.
Zippy? We don't know yet. We don't. I think I've had the best time covering it this way, getting to talk about each episode and still getting to talk with Rob on the feedback show and getting even more content with the X interview. So loving the way this is going so far. Thank you so much, Mike, for being here every week. First week of many
Yeah.
ahead. Thank you to our listeners. Thank you to the team behind the scenes. And I will see you with Rob on the feedback show. Bye.